I'll now go to Kentucky and recognize Mr. Guthrie.
Thank you. Welcome to Kentucky again. And I'm sorry I missed some of the discussion. We have 3 subcommittee hearings going on today, so we're all kind of bouncing around, and I really want to be part of this discussion, but I was chairing one, so I couldn't be. So I'll say that to get right to my point. You know, Kentucky's been an energy-producing state. We're very famous for good Kentucky coal, and what we've seen is some of our coal plants obviously go out of existence and move forward. So, you know, my big concern, and one of the things I would like to see and going to work on is turning these brownfield sites, the old coal plants, into nuclear sites. We're trying to continue our leadership and our local, state and local leaders. So I guess my question, and I know I used to work in transportation stuff when I was at previous committees, and building in a right-of-way is a lot simpler when you've already done a lot of the work beforehand than just building a greenfield site. I know there's differences between, it's not just completely 100%. You're not just adding an extra lane. There's some differences between nuclear and other power generation, but there are a lot of similarities. And so my question to each of you, if you kind of address them, we'll just start left and go right. What are your views about the potential use of brownfield sites? And then can we use these sites to help expedite? Do you think it would make it quicker using a site that already existed for energy producing to make it quicker? Mr. Nordhaus, if you'll start.
Yeah, I mean, there obviously, I think we've number of conversations we've had already here. It's clear that there's huge potential there. I think that we will need to expedite and do any of that quickly. I think we're going to kind of need to take a hard look at a set of the existing rules and regulations associated with exclusion zones, emergency planning, a variety of other issues. I think the Commission has already stumbled a bit on that issue and sort of trying to reset those rules already. You know, obviously, when you're talking about a very different kind of advanced nuclear plant, often smaller, that you're talking to sort of dropping into an existing coal site that is smaller than the historic large, you know, 10-mile exclusion zones we've had around large light water plants. There's going to be a need to make pretty significant changes in the regulatory frameworks. Those changes are appropriate given the differences in the technology, but that's just one example of the sort of kind of change that's going to have to happen. It's going to have to happen quickly in terms of modernizing regulation. If I think, you know, I see kind of pretty broad bipartisan desire to kind of turn these sites into sites for nuclear generation, but that literally can't happen without pretty significant changes in how the NRC approaches a set of these questions around regulating sites.
All right, thank you. Ms. Korsniak.
I think it's a wonderful idea, and I think we should challenge the regulator to make it happen efficiently. These are a fantastic way to keep that workforce employed. Many towns are built literally around a fossil fuel plant. There's no reason for that town to go out of business just because that coal plant needs to transition to another source of energy. And nuclear is a wonderful opportunity. I mentioned in answer to a previous question, a study was done. We could use 75% of the workforce. I challenge it. I think it can be even more percentage of the workforce. I've worked at nuclear plants before. We brought coal folks down to help us with our refueling outages. We work hand in glove. It's a match made in heaven.
Thank you. Ms. Toth?
Yeah, thank you, Congressman. So Good Energy Collective, you know, we've started to look at quantifying some of the community level benefits through our report, Opportunities for Coal Closure Communities through Nuclear Energy. And, you know, this year we'll be conducting some on-the-ground engagements with prospective host communities facing coal plant retirements over, you know, what are your questions about nuclear? Maybe you've worked on some of the plants before to help with refueling outages. But we anticipate that, you know, communities that are familiar with hosting large energy infrastructure like a coal facility may be among the most interested in hosting new nuclear, and we should be facilitating that as part of a just energy transition.
Thank you. Mr. Merrifield?
Yeah, I think coal facilities, for all the reasons mentioned, make excellent sites for nuclear power plants. Much of the infrastructure can be reused. I would say the same for other fossil plants that are retiring, combined cycle gas units, for example, or other brownfield communities. I think Congressman Tonko made some good points about the expansion there. One thing I would say, you know, the NRC right now requires there to be an analysis of a need for power in the environmental impact statement process. That seems to be a pretty redundant if you're talking about repowering a coal plant. In addition, this requirement is really typically covered by state public utility commissions in terms of the need for power, or has been evaluated by the applicant itself. So I think the NRC's, I know in the context of the modernization of Nuclear Reactor Environmental Reviews Act, one of the areas of strengthening I believe would be to drop the requirement for the NRC to do a need for power. It's one of the largest pieces of their review. Frankly, I think it's completely unnecessary.
Thanks. Appreciate that, and my time has expired, so I'll yield back.